The property sort of begins right at the at those conduit there. That's sort of the property, the back side of the building, all the way out to the sidewalk. So we'll show you how you actually get into the basement. So you can see here, we kind of just sealed this off. This was the little loading bay, and so that becomes the ramp to get down into the basement. And you know, Paul, I forget, but there's 40 cars down there. And you can see all of the railroad lines for the metro line that comes into the city.
All converge right here.
And they all actually go through, land through this property.
All running right overhead of this whole
All the trusses.
Start me at the beginning, Jim. Your client brings you out here. You look at this.
Yes.
What do you think? What's going through your mind?
Well, he's a client, and he's a very good friend. His son and my daughter went to school together at St. Clement and Ignatius, and I know him very well. And Mike Drew brings me out here to walk me through and says essentially, we come out here, we walk through. The windows are caving in. It's a pigeon condo. It's everywhere. It's flooded. Water is up to sidewalk level. You realize that almost every piece of steel is corroded and would have to be replaced. The exterior wall masonry needed repair. You see that all of the lines of the metro are falling through the property, and so they have some of the same issues that the base building has. And I turned to Mike and I said, you know what, Mike, you know, we love rehabbing buildings, but I think you should do what they told Forrest Gump to do. Drop everything and run. Let's get out of here. And we laughed about it, and we still laugh about it to this day. But Mike had an idea, and his partner Dan had the idea that this would be not only a great addition for them and their portfolio and to develop, but they had some tax ideas. And Mike said, you know, are you in? Do you want to do this with us? And of course, I wouldn't leave him hanging. So that's how we started. That was essentially it. They went to auction. They had their strategy. They won the project at auction.
Is that what? Okay.
Yes. And so I think they had some back taxes. And I don't know all the details there, but they had some back taxes to clean up. And then we were in search of the rest of our team, a program and a team. And we had a number of meetings. Of course, as you can imagine, this was in 2004. Sorry. 2004.
Take us into the team. Was the team pretty much in agreement on what the final shape of the project should be? Were there internal debates over use of space?
I think the biggest debate was really about how to do it, how to accomplish what we were trying to do. I think they always had the idea that they wanted a first floor retail type tenant, and they were going to do 2 floors of offices above it, 3, as we had talked about before, originally. But the biggest issue was just trying to figure out how to get the structure inside the building, and then what was left once we did that, divide it into space.
And Joe, you know what's interesting is every developer comes in and says, here's what I need to do to make money. We had to start figuring out what we could do, and then kind of backtrack,
right,
back up from there. And Mike is doing great things all over the city. He's doing the British School up on Halstead, the new British School.
Is he? Okay.
So I think that he's got a passion for this, and he likes architecture, and yeah. So
we don't like that.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the whole thing about this project is we had to figure out how many floors you could put in.
Well, that's what I was wondering. You could have, again, you just with the open space,
right,
if it weren't for the constraints of the window openings. I mean,
Yeah, there are a lot of other mundane constraints in terms of codes and access and stairs, and, which sort of limit where you could go. So that was really kind of the governing factor in a lot of it.
So it was really kind of a process of 3 or 4 months there to figure out what we could get in, meeting with landmarks, what they would allow us to do to activate this building in terms of access in and out, how many windows they would allow us to take down to grade. Right now they were all up high, so that how many they could take down to grade so we could actually make them usable retail spaces.
The fire department would allow us to do.
Correct. We had to go talk to the Union Pacific guys to find out what they would allow us to do and how we could build around them. And I'm sure there were many other conversations that Mike had, and with insurance companies and all sorts of people. But yeah, that's how it started. And I think it was almost 2 years later, we brought on, about 7 or 8 months into the process, we brought on Resport, Paul Borg from Resport, their contracting company, and they were a perfect match for this team. They're a hands-on, 20-person general contracting firm, and they just managed it really well. Mike brought on a project manager of his own to handle just specifically this project, Jeff Berta, and that was sort of the team that put this together.
Any project of this scope, you have some surprises, some of them nasty.
Yeah.
Did you encounter any as you got into the building?
I think the whole
what didn't we run into?
Yeah, the whole problem. Well, once we looked at this building, we knew everything was going to happen. There was nothing. Nothing unanticipated happened because we assumed that the entire steel frame would have to be replaced. We assumed that we'd have to build a ship in a bottle. We knew we'd have to tuck point, and there were. I'd say we knew. Only good things happened after we started this project.
When you say the entire steel frame had to be replaced, how does one do that?
You do it, you shore it up, and you do it in pieces.
Shore the building up in pieces and replace.
But isn't the steel frame wrapped in masonry in this building?
The steel frame was actually inside the building.
Yes.
The masonry shell is self-supporting, and then there was a frame inside the building that was holding the roof up.
Correct.
Okay.
And it was also holding up certain mezzanine spaces and
catwalks, gangways.
I will tell you the biggest kick I got out of this, the biggest add-on or surprise was the chimney is accessible, and you can walk up the chimney and the staircase all the way to the top. And during that process, we thought we were going to have to take the chimney down. We saved it, it's accessible, and we've cleaned it and we lit it up. And that was really I think that's sort of one of the biggest surprises that happened.
So essentially, the structure really always was a ship in a bottle, because if the outer shell was separate from what the original steel frame was,
yes,
you kind of went with what the structure of the building was anyway.
Yes, and then we had to support all of the. We had sort of float, again, this new structure in there, only touch the windows, where the floors touch. So, I'd like to say, we've gone into a lot of buildings and found surprises, but in this one, the fact that our client wanted to do it was the biggest surprise.